Right, hello, and welcome to this webinar on artificial intelligence and the film industry. I'm Tim Dams, a freelance journalist and editor specializing in film and TV, and I'll be chairing the webinar. Now, slowly but surely, the film industry is starting to change its attitude towards artificial intelligence. For years, the idea that computers and data could play a role in movie making was considered something of an anathema in the film industry, where personal taste, charisma, and talent were viewed as key to success. But skepticism is starting to wane. We've seen firms such as Netflix and Amazon thrive by using technology to guide decision-making, both about what audiences see and what they commission. In the past year, we've also seen some of the big studios sign deals with AI firms to similarly help them inform greenlight decisions. Independent production companies are also expressing interest, hoping that the technology will help level the playing field between them and the big studios and streamers. The difference this time, I think, is that the early hype about AI, which left many confused and thinking that machines could basically write hit films, has dissipated. It's now been replaced by a recognition that AI can help speed up processes that are often time-consuming and difficult, such as providing financial forecasts for a film in different markets. AI can also help minimize investor risk by offering insights on how to improve a film's audience appeal, say by cast or script changes, thereby increasing ROI. Crucially, it's about helping make your project better, aiding decision-making rather than doing it all for you. Now, one of the really interesting companies in this space is Switzerland-based Largo.ai, which was selected as one of the Horizon 2020 top startups at the Berlin Film Festival and won the Best Innovation Award at the San Sebastian Film Festival. With Largo.ai over the next hour, we'll explore AI's benefits for filmmakers. We'll hear from Sami Arpa, CEO and founder of Largo.ai, and also from Ilaria Lauzana, the platform's technical lead. We'll also get the filmmaker perspective from Sean O'Kelly, the chairman of Brilliant Pictures, whose producer credits include movies such as Iron Sky, Gunshy, Damascus Cover, and Donovan's Echo. We're going to start with a brief presentation from Sami, who will tell us about Largo.ai, and will also talk us through how Largo.ai analysed one of Sean's projects. Then we'll have a discussion with Sean about what he thinks of AI and the results of Largo.ai's analysis of his project. And then we'll transfer to Ilaria, who will give us some other examples of work that Largo.ai has done, so you can get an even better picture of how it works. Finally, we'll open it up to the audience for questions. And if you have any questions, please use the Q&A tool on Zoom and we'll do our best to answer them. But first, Sami, can you start off by telling us more about Largo.ai?
Yeah, I have the sound here. Thank you, Tim. Hello, everybody. Pleasure to present to you today. So Largo.ai, as Tim mentioned, is based in Switzerland, but we have also a foot in Los Angeles. So we have a history of 3 years as a company, but our technologies are developed more than 5 years. We are a spin-off EPFL, which is like MIT of Europe, and we have many research are ongoing with this university, and then some of the research have been already converted as the service on Largo.ai platform. We are getting a great interest from the industry, and also we have a good backup by both investors and also some public funds. And for the team, we have a great mixture of the filmmakers and also scientists. I have both had. I got my PhD in computer science in the field of computer vision, understanding visuals and the relationship with the literal semantics. But I've been also in the kitchen of filmmaking. Javier and Rodrigo from our team is coming with strong background in film industry. We have the scientists like Ilaria Berg. Ilaria is one of the speaker today as well. And Professor Sabine Systrunk is a very strong scientist in the field of imaging who is our scientific advisor. That's just some of players from our team. We have some other people as well, but yeah, the main reason for our success in the past year is this great mixture of the people coming from different disciplines. And in terms of our tool, we provide this as a service to producers and distributor studios. And our goal is to empower the gut feeling of the industry instead of just replacing it by using artificial intelligence. We promise two things. One thing is the speed. To get such analysis, understanding of your content, its impact in very fast way. And the second thing is reducing the risk of the project and increase the its impact. And to feed this system, we use a very rich data. We have more than 400,000 movies and series metadata. 1.8 million talents have been analyzed. We have 49,000 movie scripts dialogues have been analyzed, and 25,000 movie trailers have been analyzed. In a conservative way, we have over 80% accuracy just for green lighting. And one thing good about that is analysis can be get in a very fast way, as quick as 5 minutes. And at this part here, I want to mention about our call for producers and distributors. If you are interested to use this tool, we have now a great opportunity. We have done this in Europe. Now we do for US and Canada, producers and distributors from US and Canada. So thanks to our supporters, we will compensate the costs of these 20 selected producers and distributors as much as 85%. And you will have a subscription of these for 6 months. The deadline for the applications is 16th October. So if you are interested, yeah, please go and make your application. You see the link here. We will send the link separately after the workshop as well. And if we look to talk about a bit our motivation, it is important to look at the journey of AI in the film industry. We see as a first important step for that is around 2006 and 2007 when Netflix and Amazon started to use AI strongly for their recommendation engines. So here the goal is more you have a big catalog of the films, a pool of the audience, and then match them in most efficient way to increase the engagement of the audience, increase their satisfaction. But another game-changing event happened in the industry related to AI around 2013-15. This was the time once we started to get the originals. So normally in the case of recommendation system, you get all the films and then you assign them to the audience in correct way. But why not if you already know what type of content the user wants, why not creating originals and ordering the right content by using also the power of the AI to increase the engagement of the audience even further. That was a big step also to produce most efficient content, most addressable content. But the problem at this step, the technologies that are used by these big tech giants, they are not available to the rest of the industry, which creates an unfair game. So that was one of the strongest motivation for us, creating such technology and innovation and make it available to all players in the industry. And we believe there will be a third final step, which is will happen in next decade, that everybody has access to AI tools and everybody is using them during the development of their projects at each step of production. And then COVID and digital transformation coming with that will be another boost for this change. So COVID brings some challenges. One of them, there is really rapid change. Even like a weekly base, you might need to change the strategies. Uncertainty level is very high. and access to financing will be even more challenging at this time. So for these reasons, usage of AI becomes even more important to understand the audience, to produce the right content, and then minimize the risk. And actually, yeah, once you use more scientific tools with your production development, that might motivate some external investors to join the industry as well, like venture capitalists. So this might be also a way for enlarging the investment pool for the movies. But one thing to touch is that there is always a skepticism in the film industry. So this question you see on the screen, we get very often by the producers. Do you want a robot to write and develop my film? So here in that, the question is what we want from AI. Is it something data-driven movie making or data-assisted movie making? For our tools, and also our goal is providing data-assisted movie making. The tools provide some insights in front of you, but AI doesn't make decisions. AI doesn't write your script, doesn't direct your film. It just puts some insights in front of you, but then it's you who needs to make the decisions and then go forward with certain parameters. So to align the expectations from the industry and then what AI can provide, it's important to see that AI is not a magic stick for the industry. So it won't change the things from day and night, but it is rather a good magnifier. Because if we think even very experienced producers, they have a limited chance of checking many different films, talents, and then connecting them in a way to have some insights. And then they will forget also most of these experiences. The power of AI, so it can analyze so huge amount of data in a very fast way, and then summarize them and put them into meaningful patterns that can help you understand your content better. Just to give an example for AI being a magnifier, so here you see the patterns from 3 different films. These are 3 famous films from past 20 years. We don't reveal the titles at this stage, but let's call them Film A, Film B, and Film C. So you see the outputs. One type of the output is coming from Largo.ai for each of these films. So we fed the script of this film into our system, and it has generated its genre patterns. So for example, if you look at Film A, so it shows how the different genres are evolving from start to the end of the movie. For example, the pink color represents here romance, blue color represents drama, and red color represents comedy. You can see the comedy levels are increasing through like section 42 in the middle, and then you can observe the other changes. So here, yeah, we want to make a very small test together with you. So the questions is, you don't know anything about these films, you just see these patterns. The question is that, which film do you think made the highest box office? And just another hint, so one of these films made only $3.7 million in gross box office. The other one made $81 million. And then one of them made $1,000 million, $1 billion gross box office. So I will just start a poll here. Okay, I'm going to end the poll here. I think the big majority of people have already voted. And I am sharing the results. So yeah, 50% of people have gone for Film B, and 38% is for Film C, and only 13% has gone for Film A. So yeah, if we look at the real results, I'm just stopping the poll. Yeah, so yeah, as the majority has voted, film B actually was the one who made $1,000 million gross box office. Film A made $3.7 million and film C made $81 million. So here, of course, these patterns are not only reason for making such box office, but there is something, some indications, as you have already, have already seen as well. In film A, for example, we see there is a very slow pace. This change of the genres are quite constant. Actually, there is not much change. If you look at like almost until section 20, section 40, there is not almost any change, and then probably the majority of the audience would already sleep by section 20. So we see actually, yeah, in many films, like having this kind of constant patterns, the return from the audience is quite big. It doesn't mean anything about artistic quality of the films. As we see, this film has been also nominated for 2 Oscars. But this pattern shows a lot of things about the potential engagement of the audience. And if you look at in film B case, I mean, that's really like the type of the picture we see in many successful films. We have really a great change of the genres, these up and downs you see, and some of them even are corresponding to plot points for the story. The real titles of these films will be just announced by Ilaria in her section. So I leave this for a bit of suspense. And so at this point, I want to show, yeah, just one example, as Tim has also mentioned, an example from a project by Sean, which is at pre-production stage that we have analyzed on Largo.ai system. So it's a good way for you to experience as well how the system is working. I need just a second to open the project. Okay. So here you see the dashboard of our system. Basically, the users, once they access to the platform, they can see a list of their projects, and then you can simply add any new project at any stage from pre-production to post-production and distribution. So now, yeah, we will look at these example projects since now that we have just recently has analyzed. So normally, once we have a project, we ask the user to put as much as information they already know about the project, like who is the director, duration of the film, what is the main release country, the financials for this project. The budget is $6.5 million. And then characters, if there's already some short list of the actors for specific characters, these are also entered to the system as the AI will evaluate those. And then let's look at one example analysis that we have run. It's a pre-production analysis. That means we have run this analysis with the script of the project. And here you see a dashboard of the results. I will go very quickly in details of this, but we have analysis of genre, age suitability, characters, similar films, and financial forecasts. So let's go to genre analysis. So in genre analysis, this is like I showed you in the examples, but here it's very nice in interactive way. You can really scroll over your script and then see which section is corresponding actually which elements over the script. And another cool feature is that so you can go and compare these patterns with other films. I just typed Interstellar, for example, the film from 2014. You see here the patterns for Interstellar. and this is for your own film. So you have a benchmark comparison this way. As you can see, Interstellar is quite different film. In that manner, it's had more sci-fi and adventure patterns. There's like 50,000 films that you can compare this way. Then we have age suitability and interest analysis again with the script. So this shows the potential age suitability and interest for the content. Again, you can measure for each part of your narrative. In the case of for this script, we see it sees more potential for the adults. I'm jumping to character analysis. In character analysis, the system finds the relationships of the characters inside the story. Here you see the queen is at the center with the biggest circle. That means it finds it as the most important character, the protagonist. Then we have also its connection with all the other characters. So the thickness of the edges here between the characters, it shows the importance of their relationship during the story. Here we see, for example, between Queen and Detective Torres, there is a lot of interaction during the film. Then we have also appearance of these characters. Here you see how they appear through the story at each scene of the film, which is a good graph for scheduling. And then finally, we have the casting propositions. So from the wish list of the project for the Queen character, these three actors, as I showed in the overview page. So this, you see the scores that are given by AI. So this scores, it shows how much match appears between the actor and the character itself. And in general, 90 and over, it means very, very good match. And 80 and over, it still means a good match. And for that character, we see Ryan Phillippe is really a good match. And then we have also the ones you see with the white background. These are the ones AI automatically proposed from some other actors that it sees a really good match, and it is still within the budget of the film. And then, yeah, we have here propositions for all other characters. Then we have similar film analysis, the same way AI finds some comparable films automatically by just comparing the matching attributes between the films. And finally, we have financial forecasts. So financial forecast, in the overview page, you type your target country. Here for this film is the US, and then it measures the box office. It forecasts the box office for US. You see first weekend predictions. It sees as most expected revenue as 5.3 million, and then domestic 12.1 million, and gross US is 37.1 million. So it is actually very, it is seeing this film is having like a great potential considering its budget as 6.5 million. And then, yeah, this is mainly it. I think I'm going to stop at this point and then transfer it to Tim for the discussions with Sean.
Thank you very much, Sami. And well, it's going to be really interesting now chatting with Sean to find out what he thinks of Largo.ai and what it's done, you know, what he's learned from it. Sean, I was wondering, first of all, actually, before we go into that, could you just tell us just a little bit about the project, so people have an idea of what they're, you know, should be thinking about in terms of what it is really?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Tim, by the way. Good to see you. And thank you, Largo, for having me on your panel. So it's based on a true story. It's essentially a schizophrenic police officer, detective, has been brought back into action because similar drownings are happening. And so it's this battle throughout the film where he originally thought he was imagining these drownings, and a certain person. So there's a big sort of fight against reality, against his illness and what's actually happening around him. So that's the kind of gist of the story. Crime thriller at its finest.
And what stage is it at the moment? It's very much at script stage, is it, or is it?
No. So it's financing's in place. We're casting at the moment, and we're looking to shoot next year in, I believe it's March, April time. New York and New Jersey are the locations.
Okay, well, I mean, just in terms of how you've interacted with Largo.ai then, so, I mean, first of all, what was it like kind of using the system, kind of entering the data, the script? I mean, how straightforward or not was it?
Well, I mean, it's incredibly straightforward. I've got to be honest with you. I even did a bit of editing, just the other day. And, the dashboard is, with the summary that you get is incredibly useful. For those who don't want to sort of be able to, have to look at everything, that's always quite easy. I think as on the whole, the data as well that you can get in more detail is very interesting. And I think for us, well, in terms of actually the inputting of data, it was very simple. Yeah.
Did it take long? How long did it take you to do it?
Well, the actual so in terms of filling out the sort of the main ingredients is essentially just like filling out a short form, i.e. director, cast, and so on and so forth. It's just the time it takes to analyze the script, which is not that long actually. It's relatively quick.
And then, what's your instant take then on the feedback or the results that you got, from AI, basically?
Yeah, well, it's always fascinating because there's a number of, there's a lot of due diligence we already put in as producers and financiers and so on. But I just believe that by having this kind of, there's a number of additional layers here that Largo and this particular AI is offering. Which I think is incredibly useful. I mean, one of the things that we did is we first of all started off the analysis without our wish list in terms of our cast wish list, and I'm happy to say that of the wish list we have secured one of those actors, and it's been a great sort of boost of confidence to know that actor has one of the highest fits. So that was really good to see. I won't tell you just yet who that is, but and also looking at the financials as well, that's always quite positive. Now obviously I've worn many hats in the past with regards to sales and distribution, and still do. So it's interesting for us to look at this kind of data and see what predictions it's able to offer up, and it could also be interesting to our investors as well.
What did you find the most useful insights? Was it perhaps on the financial side, the cast side, the story side? I mean, what for you?
So I think there's a mixture. I mean, I'm sure from the production side there'll be more. There could be a different sort of response to this. But from my personal, studying of the data, I think scheduling I think is huge, and the kind of forensic breakdown that you get for each character was actually quite phenomenal. I also think that from the casting side, I was just very pleased to see that we almost tried to trick the system in that we didn't give away what cast we were going to, who our wish list was. And actually, when we did put in that data, that came up trump. So we were quite happy with the results there.
So it matched the cast, or it matched some of the cast that you had already had in mind?
It had its own original suggestions, which were all very good and actually in line with the type of cast we would have gone for. But actually, when we added in our original wish list, we did have a sort of a number one, number two, and number three, and it managed to predict the order of those accurately.
And then, so I mean, having read the results and seen the results, is there anything that you will change about the project as a result? Is it made you kind of veer away from things perhaps, or towards other things?
No, I don't think so. Not in this case, because we believe we started with a very good script, written by Jonathan Fernandez, and we've had a huge amount of feedback, and we've done a lot of work on the script already. So we didn't feel there was any necessary changes from the script. I think sort of harnessing, sort of pushing back to the casting, and all the other sort of information that we can just rapidly get. Then that was interesting. I think had we been sort of at an earlier script stage, then then definitely the feedback, from the data we were getting from the script, we'd probably have a look at that in closer detail. But this particular project is quite far along. Like I said, it's already been financed and it's geared up for production. I'm sure if we saw something quite alarming, we would definitely get around a table and have a look at it. But so far, it looks very good.
And on the financing side, actually, did it kind of produce? Did it feel right? Did it feel like it fit?
I think it's slightly exceeding exception. It's slightly sort of exceeding. What our kind of guesstimates and forecasts are.
Right.
But that's always a pleasant thing. But it has to be realistic at the same time.
Right.
So I think it's just a notch above, of what we're expecting, which
It sounds like it's almost just providing a little bit of extra reassurance. Is that the kind of right?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, I mean, there's a whole sort of, there's a lot of due diligence that we already had in place, but we carry out as much as we can. And I think this adds a few more layers to it, which is a really useful tool.
And can I just ask more generally, actually? So how do you think this or AI itself will fit in within the film industry? Do you think it will prove beneficial to producers? Do you think it will be picked up and used by producers? I'm not talking less necessarily specific about Largo.ai, but AI in general and platforms like.
Yeah. No, I do actually. I definitely do. I mean, look, people like Netflix and everyone else are using it, and I think it only stands to reason that producers should also be, employing it as well. Essentially they'll be speaking the same language ultimately, but will it, the big question is, no, I don't think it will obviously replace the creative elements, but it'll certainly help, in that extra, sort of layers of information.
And what about, I mean, people, there are still kind of quite a few, articles written in papers and everything, and they play up the kind of threat to humans from artificial intelligence. Basically, we'll all be out of jobs. It's going to replace us, or worse. I mean, do you see it as a threat to people and creators within the industry at all?
Well, I hope not. I mean, like I said, I don't see how it can overtake the kind of human creative elements. I just can't see that being possible. So what it is doing is providing data on how to improve upon certain things like the script and the amount of action or the amount of comedy and the amount of dialogue, and being able to sort of forensically analyze that and see where you can do better. That's where it's helping. But I don't think that it's going to replace ultimately the writers or any such creative talent.
And then last question. I mean, you have a kind of background in sales and distribution as well. And I was just thinking, apart from the production side, how do you think AI can help for the distribution process? What kind of learnings can you take there really from it?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's quite fascinating to me. And I, looking at the numbers that we had on Cinema, although there are a number of things that at the moment aren't included. For instance, I think this is primarily the data that we were looking at is based on theatrical release and box office. As you know, the models are changing so fast. A lot of the time, this film could well end up, for instance, as a worldwide deal with Netflix or Amazon or Apple even. So the box office element may not be anything at all from one of those kind of deals. So it'd be interesting actually to see what the data looks like when it's got a bit more, it's got some more input in terms of factoring in those type of deals, which is a model which is becoming quite relevant right now, especially during lockdown as well.
Yeah. Well, Sean, thank you very much.
Well, that's a pleasure.
A kind of real world perspective on this actually, and all the very best for Sintanawa, and we'll be sure to look out for it next year or the year after. So thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you, Tim.
Right, now I'm going to hand over to Ilaria, who's the technical lead at Largo.ai, and she's going to kind of tell us a little bit more about the platform, give us some examples, and I think will also tell us the results of the quiz, more importantly.
Yes, hi, thank you so much for introduction. Yes, in fact, we've seen the results here. We can see the 3 films that we have introduced earlier. I'd like to first start by saying that all these films have received actually a lot of nominations, well, Oscar nomination and a lot of critical acclaim. So first of all, these patterns does not equate to how good a film are, but instead they can give us a lot of information about the film itself. For instance, the first one was The Portrait of a Lady, and as we were seeing, the pace is a bit more constant, and it's mostly a drama with some romance, which is in pink, while the other 2 films are films that have more of a pattern of action, or thriller in light blue. So this is something that can come up for our analysis instead. So, for instance, the second one is, in fact, the film Joker. I don't think it's a surprise for anybody when we said it had made a worldwide box office of $1 billion. And here we see that, in fact, it has quite an interesting dynamic pattern that changes a lot during the film. And it has thriller and has a hint of crime, but overall, it's a very interesting pattern. And I think that the pattern can tell us a lot about movies. So if we focus, for instance, of patterns of famous directors, as we'll see in the next slide right here, on the left, we see all the patterns from movies from Tarantino. And on the right, we see patterns from Woody Allen movies. So these are very different, of course, type of movies, but we can really start to recognize a bit the styles of these directors, which I think is really interesting. On the left, we see patterns that are of high, again, thriller, a lot of action, which is represented in orange. And on the right, instead, we can see patterns that are comedy in red and pink, so romance. I just to throw a few names around, the films from Tarantino were actually films, so in order, they're Django Unchained, Kill Bill, Pulp Fiction, and The Eightful Hate, just to give an idea. So there are a bit like different movies that they'll all have represented similarly. So we can start to recognize a bit the style of the directors. If we focus now on one of the specific graphs that we have for Woody Allen, I also think I wanted to point it out because I think it's really interesting, is that this third one that is now highlighted has different ending. And we can see here that we have higher thriller and the crime, which is in purple, a slight bit of a horror in brown, which is a bit surprising. And in fact, it's very different with the other 3. And I'm not sure if anybody could chart, since we've had a bit of an experience with this pattern, if anybody could tell which movie this is. But otherwise, I'm here for this, so I'm going to tell you right now. This is actually the movie Match Point, which in fact is a movie that after about 2/3 of the movie, so we can see it represented with the sections, after about 2/3 of the movie changes a lot the topic and discusses, in fact, something that is centered more on crime. So there are a few things that I'd also like to point out on these patterns as well. Here we have the example from The Shawshank Redemption. We can see that in this case, the movie starts with a really intense scene that is well represented by the pattern. We have a very strong beginning with a crime, with a drama and thriller. And in fact, it's a very intense scene where we discover that the protagonist has been found guilty. So this is something that we can really detect from the pattern directly. And we can see similarly where films have become famous because of their ending, such as is the case of Fight Club right now. We can see that the ending is very, very active, very dynamic. And in fact, it's quite explosive. It has high action, high thriller. And it's something that we can, again, extract very quickly from analyzing this pattern. Now, if we instead focus on a bit more thorough case study, we can have the example of Little Women, as we have now, which is a movie, as we can see from the first pattern. It's a movie which is centered on, which is a drama, and it's centered on family relationships that are well represented with this romance pattern. So not only romantic relationship, but also family relationships, such as the sisterhood of the March sisters. We also have a few more things that we find on the platform we wanted to share as well. The prediction for the age suitability for the movie is just below. It finds correctly that the movie is mostly targeted for teenagers and adults, but that it would still be suitable for children, which is represented in light blue in this graph. We also extract the most important topics in the film, which in fact is a period piece. Just at the end of the slide, we can see that it's a period piece. It's based on a literature work. It's a passionate film about movie, and etc. We can analyze as well the casting match for the actresses and actors that were chosen for the roles. And we can see in this case that the actor matches that we get with our system, so matching this DNA for the current film with the DNA that the actors represent, we can see that all these actors have a good match. We found that matches over 80% because they're very good matches. And this film has an average match rate of about 90%, which is great. It means that the characters are well represented by the idea that we have for the actors. And so all these patterns that we have extracted, that we have predicted together with the metadata on the film and information on the release, allow us to make the box office predictions as we have done, as we have in this slide. The film has made $108 million at the box office, and our most expected revenue for this system was in fact $104.9 million, which is really close. We're really happy with that. When we have another example of a film that has not made such a big box office success, which is the film Annihilation from 2018. Again, we have represented here the pattern for the genre, for the age suitability, and the extracted genes. Here, we cannot really detect from the genre pattern, as we were doing earlier, if this film is going to be a big box office success or not. It seems it has a very interesting pattern. It has a sci-fi component that we haven't seen yet. It's the one in green, which of course is related to the story. However, one of the things we have found might not have worked well for the project was the actor matches. In fact, if we consider the character casting, we can see that the actor matches for these characters are much lower than the ones that we're considering earlier. We have an average of about 70% compared to the 90% of earlier, and with one actress, which is even 61.5%. Now, this doesn't mean that the actors are not going to do a great job while playing the role, right? These are still, like Gina Rodriguez is the example that I've picked, and I think she's an amazing actress and she's also played well. But the point is that this is a more risky choice because viewers do not relate the character to the topic at hand. So this is something that we provide, and we think it is important in predictions as well. And so with this issue and with other choices related to the release that has been made for the project, so together with other issues as well, we can see that this project could have made only 55.6 box office revenue at the box office worldwide against a budget of $50 million, which unfortunately can happen, and we would have been able to predict something like this. We would be able to predict this type of results this way. Lastly, as we mentioned a lot during this conversation, we discussed a lot how important is the actor match in our predictions. I'd like to share an analysis that we have made over 6,200 films that were released in the US. So we wanted to see the influence of the actor popularity over the return of investments and compare it to how much was the influence of the actor match against the return of investment. And we can see that the graph on the right, which is the average actor match, is more positively related to the return of investment compared to the actor popularity, which is why we push so much. We provide casting propositions, and we provide matches for the casting, because we can see that this is one of the features that really make an importance in a correct prediction for the box office. So that is all that I have to share today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ilaria. That was great. Good to know more about how everything works and what it can do, more importantly. Now, we're just going to open up now to the Q&A section of this webinar. And we've had some good questions in already. And thank you very much for those. If you have any more, please send them through. We'll do our best to answer them now. And I'm just going to start actually with one of the questions that's come in. And it's about the kind of data entry process, how you do that at Largo.ai. And the question we've got here, was this generally a supervised labeled data entry process or automated clustering or a combo? And what do you think are the advantages of how you choose to invest the data? So really, a little bit of insight perhaps on how you've gone about uploading all of the projects into the platform, really.
Well, I cannot share too many information of the data because that's one of the strong parts of AI. Of course, it's important to choose your data correctly. But absolutely, I can say that to make correct predictions in this area, we have decided to use a supervised learning approach. We consider previous revenues for previous projects, and we try to compare it to the current project to see basically how much the revenue could be. So this is all related to past results of the box office and how much they're closely related to the current project. Of course, there is some pre-processing involved, so unsupervised part is still involved in terms of cleaning and pre-processing the data, but it's mostly a supervised learning approach. There are more models actually, so of course for different patterns we have different models as well, but they're mostly supervised.
Ami, do you want to add anything to that?
No, as just wanting to add, as Ilaria mentioned, so for the financial forecast, we learn from the past box office data, but once it comes to learning about the genres and age suitability, learning about that, or predicting the genome of a film, we have many intermediate learning steps as well. So here you go really create a universal language of the films, because you have films coming from many different languages. We need to put them into the same type of the learning. Then for that you need to create a universal learning language for the system. But yeah, once it comes to supervision for this as well, that the really initial pattern is coming as in a supervised way.
Right. And then just another question we had earlier as well is, do you or can people? I mean, TV drama is obviously kind of booming at the moment. Can this be used with drama, or is it just film?
So at this moment, our still over the current platform. So you can analyze actually any type of narrative, because once you put a story, it still analyzes genres, age suitability, all these things. But once it comes to financial forecast, at this moment, the predictions are given for the movies box office. But as of November, so we will also start to provide some streaming predictions, which we think can be some value also than for the TV programs or streaming movies, to see its potential in the public through the streaming channels.
Great, thank you. And then there's a couple of interesting questions around the same theme of kind of casting and gender. And one here is quite good. So if most of the films to date have been written and directed by men, your data set for comparison will, I imagine, be predominantly pulling from male stories. So how are you able to address gender bias in this technology? I mean, obviously this is a kind of, very topical question with the Me Too movement and everything like that. Is the platform, will it show us what's worked in the past rather than what might work in the future?
So there's one thing that I wanted to discuss first, because that's something that we have discussed recently as well, which it's really close to me, of course, as I'm sure people will imagine. It's really important to me to really de-bias all the models. It's something that is really close to my heart. It's important, and there's a lot of research going on debiasing models of machine learning. So trying to make sure that there is no gender bias or racial bias inside a model. Of course, it's still a work in progress, so I cannot promise that this is going to be 100% debiased, but know that this is something that is close to us, and we try to do our best to tackle this issue. So, for instance, there are some research done also in terms of visual similarities and facial similarities and things like this that we have ongoing. I'm not going to share more on that, but that's something that we are targeting directly. In terms of only having male stories, well, that's something that we have to fight as people to start to grow our data more and more and be able to make sure that we have good representation in the stories that we tell. But that's something that we can tackle as well by making sure that we have a correct balance once we are learning from these models.
Just to add one specific example, for example, for the casting as well, the bias becomes really an important thing. So for that matter, what we did, interestingly, for example, we don't give ethnicity information to AI. So once AI makes the casting proposition, it doesn't have any ethnicity information. The reason we did for that, we didn't want it to learn from the bias of the current society in terms of the casting and etc. So in that regard, we also made some analysis what AI suggests as the casting, and if you look at the regular casting match, you see it is 2-3 times more diverse than actually by the past selections from the previous films, although it still learns from the previous films. But still you can mimic it a bit by not showing some of the information, and then it becomes more democratic in that manner.
Yeah, we try to democratize it at the level of choosing a bit. This is a bit of the preprocessing that I was mentioning before.
Okay. And what about another good question here about typecasting as well? I mean, you might imagine that it will pick out all the actors that have had the most successful films and suggest that, you know, past success basically will be the basis on which, you know, people will be chosen and put forward and recommended. I mean, will it lead to typecasting, do you think, if people use AI?
Well, that's something that we've seen a lot, that we've heard a lot, but what we think is that we are providing a much larger pool of people to choose from, which is something that a lot of people don't have available when they're making a casting, when they're thinking about actors or actresses or talents for their roles. So we actually see this as a possibility to really enlarge the pool that we are choosing from, rather than just trying to propose over and over again the same thing, the same talents, especially because our DNA, let's say the one that we use, is actually pretty structured. It's not it's not only choosing things based on genre, but it's choosing a much larger feature set for these cinematographic attributes. So it's really hard to really propose the same actor over and over again for different roles, because they have different nuances in their DNA, let's say. So we actually see this as an enrichment for producers to choose their characters, their talent.
Okay. And then another one here, have there been any, or are there any examples you can share of films that have used Largo.ai and that, you know, have been made, have been released, and, you know, might have used Largo.ai to guide them? You know, is there a case study that you kind of share with us, basically?
Yeah, for that, we suggest to visit our company websites, largofilms.ch. So we have many blog posts over there, including some case studies, real case studies from some previous films that we have published, sometimes even before the films released, our analysis about the films and then comparison with the real results.
Great. And another question here about investors and whether, you know, a I mean, I think we might have talked about this a little bit during the webinar today, but how useful something like Largo AI is for investors when they're going out to do pitches. How important do you think, when pitching to investors to use something like this?
I think it's pretty important because we see especially in independent world, once they pitch to the investors, there is no any risk assessment that you put on the table of the investors. The more solid cases, we see the comparable films is one of the method that is most applied in the industry. The producers create a selection of the comparable films, and then from that they make some forecasting to producers. But we see from also investor perspective, that is okay. It is better than nothing, but it's not fully convincing because the forecast can change significantly the way you select these comparable films. So it becomes how much you can convince the investors with your selection of these comparable films. Mm. So in that regard, AI comes in a much less biased way. Okay, it goes over all possible films and create all the connections and then create a risk assessment. And once AI making a prediction, it also gives the risk intervals. I think that's the thing really the investors wants to see, because we can tell easily, the AI forecasting AI makes also mistakes as well. That is, AI is not 100% accurate. It's just significantly better than the traditional method. But the important thing, once an investor sees that, it sees the risk intervals. Together with the prediction, also you see the risk interval, then they can make a calculation over that. And especially for VCs, once they invest in multiple projects, and they have a real risk assessment that they can see where they can end.
I was just going to agree, Tim, that I think it will be incredibly useful for us going forward to actually show certain parts of this to our investors. So this, definitely beneficial.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And another question about the cost. I don't know, what you can share with us now, or the business model of Largo AI. What does it cost for producers?
So we have really quite varying of the models to be able to address these two different size of the producers, from independent producers to big studios. So we have subscription packages, and also we have on-demand analysis. On-demand analysis, which is a single analysis that you can run over your script or rough cut, fine cut of the film, which is $750. But then if you make the subscription, you can run multiple analysis, which becomes per analysis becomes much cheaper. We have basic, premium, and premium plus subscriptions, and basic subscription starts from $1,000 per month, which allows you 3 analysis to run per month. And then for bigger volume, yes, we have different packages. We can provide more information if they contact us directly.
So is the platform suitable for films with lower budgets? given the cost, $500,000 to $1 million, is it something that can be used at the lower budget?
Yeah, absolutely. We have, we are in Europe. We are working with many European producers. That is the place. The art house cinema is very strong. The budget of the films is smaller. So we have many cases like that as well. So for even the festival films, we have the customers, that they are just targeting the festivals, but they want to see, we have many tools. Financial forecast is just one of them, but you have many tools like analysis of the story and this casting, all these aspects. So they like to discover these aspects as well.
Mm-hmm. And can the platform, is non-English speaking cast also included in the database? Does it cover,
Yes, currently we are with the talents that we presented, the 1,800,000 cast talents analyzed. We are including talents of multiple backgrounds that are speaking multiple languages. So we can also filter the actors by the language they speak, by the countries that they active in, so that we can also propose, for instance, if we're looking for Australian actors, then that's something that we can look for, and we can we can really filter the characters this way, the talent.
And Liz, I'm afraid we're coming to an end. Actually, we've hit our hour. A couple of questions people have asked: can we get a recorded version of this seminar? Is that going to be available, and where can people find that?
Yeah, I think we'll send after the webinar. We'll send all the people who registered into the session.
Fantastic. Well, I think it's time to wrap. I'm afraid we have got a few unanswered questions. We'll try and get back to those, with typed answers, and follow up with those afterwards if we haven't attended to those now. But I really just wanted to say, thank you, Sami, Ilaria, and Sean for that. A fascinating insight into this technology that, as we said at the beginning, I think everyone was kind of slightly worried about, perhaps had been overhyped, but I think we've seen over the past hour that it really is a very useful assistance tool, perhaps, for producers when trying to kind of predict and trying to kind of work out best steps for their projects. And I'm sure you will go from strength to strength with this. So thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, everyone who attended, and for all your questions as well. Okay.
Thank you.